I remember that from 2008 and 2018, just within a 10-year period, just the amount of young people who had an excellent command of the language impressed the shit out of me. Well, I would meet them out in the mall, and they would come up and talk to my wife and myself, and I didn't think they were local.
Yeah.
They spoke, they sounded, their pronunciation was excellent.
Yeah.
I think it just a lot can happen within a 5 or 10 year period, and I think Vietnam is a great example of globalization, of people realizing that they want to participate in the global economy. Not just the parents saying, "Hey kids, you got to go learn English, it's important." Them themselves being open like a sponge, to take in information and take in different things around the world. I've been very impressed by that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the Vietnamese, they have that, they have that in them. Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to help me, because I know your background is in design. When you came back to Vietnam, what was the attitude about some of the design ideas that you brought back that you wanted to introduce to the market?
No, I mean, I came from the design background, and I mean, it was rough. There's only a handful of really thoughtful, in my opinion, this is just purely my opinion, thoughtful sort of design buildings and places. But the rest are just there's just there's never, in my opinion, they just never thought about the functionality and the use of of the space, or how to really properly design anything. In all honesty, there's no sense of creativity in a way that and even with the respect to sort of how it how it feels and stuff like that. So I mean, we look at it, we as my team, the design team, back in those days, was to really try to I guess in like everybody else, just try to bring back and implement or push the design that we think works in the other parts of the world. Maybe it will work here, and I think in some way that could be good, and it could also be could also have an adverse effect, meaning that sometimes they're used to a certain way, and if you bring in a new sort of approach, then it doesn't, it might not work in this type of environment, or that the material, it doesn't work with this type of weather, or just the functionality of that space doesn't really work well with what they're using, if how they're using it, and so forth. So but I think in some way, so one of the good example that I can, because I'm trying to think of an example, is we did this restaurant for a couple of friends, and at that time there was a big sort of in the West, in California and New York, there was a big sort of this urban industrial movement, coffee shop, the Starbucks, the coffee shop being very industrial, and restaurants and so forth. And I remember trying to recreate that here. And we have a friend, they wanted to create that type of restaurant. And they gave it to a local Vietnamese designer. And, a local Vietnamese designer, they've never been to a space like that. You can look at pictures all you want. You can look at examples. Pinterest is like one of the best tools, right, for a designer. But it doesn't do anything for you without the experience of being in that space, and how it really looks with the lights on and off is different, right? Or the type of lights are different, or the just being in that space is different than looking at that space in the picture. So I remember looking at it, and then I remember him coming to me and show me and say, "Hey, can you look at this design?" I said, "Sure." I looked at it, and it looks very, because they think like this industrial, rustic kind of look. So it's got to be a lot of brick. It's got to be an exposed brick.